on Newsmax Prime. A new national poll is out, and it shows Donald Trump extending his lead over the next closest candidate, Senator Ted Cruz. The surging senator forced to take on the Washington Post after a cartoon is published mocking him and his two young daughters. Dick Morris joins us to break it all down. Then, what is on most people's wish list this Christmas? New reports say it might be guns. Bernie Carrick will weigh in. Plus, a story of faith and forgiveness sure to touch your heart. Newsmax Prime for Wednesday, December 23rd starts right now. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Newsmax Prime. I'm Rick Blackwell in for J.D. Hayworth. Great to have you with us. Of prime interest tonight, big bump for Trump. A new CNN ORC poll shows GOP frontrunner Donald Trump, who has remained atop the national poll since July, extending his lead, with Mr. Trump now more than doubling his closest competitor, Senator Ted Cruz. Now, Trump comes in at a whopping 39%. Senator Cruz is alone in second at 18%. Senator Marco Rubio and Dr. Ben Carson each come in at 10%. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie at 5%. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, 4%. Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush at 3%, while former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee and Ohio Governor John Kasich are at 2%, and former HP CEO Carly Fiorina comes in at 1%. So, if the two most recent polls show anything, it's that the voters are remaining fluid. But with Trump still garnering the most support, they also show Donald Trump and Ted Cruz really pulling away from the rest of the field. Political commentator and former presidential advisor Pat Buchanan was on Newsmax TV yesterday. He told Steve Malzberg there are some similarities between Trump and another Washington outsider, Ronald Reagan.
That Trump has these X factors that I think could really, they were sort of, and I'm not making a direct comparison with Reagan, but people didn't understand, this added advantage that Reagan had because of the persona and the rest of it, that he was just sort of a gun-toting, terrific guy. Donald Trump right now has to be regarded as the favorite for the nomination. I mean, leading in every poll but a couple of Iowa polls.
Well, for more on the story, we are pleased to be joined on set by political analyst Dick Morris. And Dick, of course, the co-author of the best-selling book, Power Grab, Obama's Dangerous Plan for a One-Party Nation. Dick, thanks so much for being here on Newsmax Prime. Okay, that's a new one for me, the comparison to Ronald Reagan. Right now, do you see any similarities?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Reagan brought back to the Republican Party the blue-collar, white, Democratic vote that FDR had gotten to be the Democrats as he built up the labor unions. And Reagan got them back over the tax issue. Then Obama stratified the tax issue by class and stole them back. And now Trump is bringing them back to the Republican Party.
Interesting that Quinnipiac poll between Ted Cruz yesterday, pretty close, 4 percentage points. Today, though, that CNN poll back to 21 percentage points. Regardless of the numbers, they do appear to be the top two. Is this a two-person race? Are we going to see this being pretty much a two-person race the rest of the way?
I think you will. The constant in all of that polling is a significant gap between Cruz in second place and Rubio and Carson in third place. Some even have Rubio and Carson as low as 10%. And I think that's after the debate, after a direct clash between Rubio on the one hand and Trump and Cruz on the other, and Rubio clearly got clobbered in that exchange.
I want to ask you about Rubio because, I mean, there's so many similarities between Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio. Same approximate age. Ted Cruz just turned 45. Marco Rubio's 44. Both first-term senators. What is Ted Cruz doing that is galvanizing the Republican voter out there, where Marco Rubio seems to be kind of languishing right around 10 to 12%? What are your thoughts?
You always have a choice. Are you going to win the election by appealing to the voters in the middle, or are you going to double down and hype turnout in your base? Clinton, when I worked for him, moved to the middle. Obama didn't. He stayed on the left and got a huge turnout on the left. Cruz is following the Obama strategy, and Rubio is following the Clinton strategy. And Republican voters don't like someone who's moving to the middle. They feel we won the elections of 10 and 14, got McConnell and Boehner, and gave everything away. So I think there's a real sentiment that if the Republicans win, we ought to make sure we really win.
voting with your heart in this particular case. I want to talk about this dust up with the media, Ted Cruz and the Washington Post and the cartoon that mocked his two young daughters. Here's his response after seeing it, then we'll get your take after this.
It's not complicated. Don't make fun of a 5-year-old girl and a 7-year-old girl. Don't mess with our kids. Don't mess with my kids. Don't mess with Marco's kids. Don't mess with Hillary's kids. Don't mess with anybody's kids. Leave kids alone.
Always fascinating, the discussion about kids, from Chelsea Clinton to the Bush girls and now the Obama daughters. And then now this discussion, I think we can all agree, leave the families out of it. Ted Cruz is actually fundraising on this. Go ahead.
But there's a big difference. The Bush daughters were in their 20s.
Yeah.
Chelsea Clinton was in her late teens and early 20s.
Important distinction, yes.
These kids are 5 and 7 years old. And to be compared to monkeys, can you imagine if they were black? And I'm not altogether sure that Latinos are not being characterized as monkeys here. Monkey is a racist term when applied to a human being. This is despicable that the Post did that.
So in some regards, is there a double standard then because of Ted Cruz's position inside the Republican Party? And obviously it's the Washington Post, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think there is. And I think I think that a cartoonist should stay far away from that.
I want to talk about the debate because Ted Cruz will be on that debate stage January 14th. Marco Rubio will be there as well.
And by the way, let's remember that what Cruz did was a Christmas card.
Yeah.
How many Christmas cards have you seen with the kids on it and the family there?
Exactly.
And all he did was do a video Christmas card. And for a touch of levity, they were reading funny Christmas stories. How Obamacare stole Christmas or Rudolph the underemployed reindeer. And that was cute. And he's reading them to his kids.
Yeah.
And to treat that as a partisan event is insane.
Well, I think there is overwhelming support. But I want to move on to the debates coming up on January 14th. It looks like right now Fox Business is going to limit it to 6 candidates. And it looks like those 6 candidates, again, will be Trump and Rubio and also Ted Cruz. Dr. Ben Carson will be there. Also, Jeb Bush will be on that stage. But it looks like some of the candidates, Carly Fiorina might not make it, Mike Huckabee. What are your thoughts about maybe limiting it to 6? Will that give the voter a better idea of the candidates who honestly have a chance to win this thing?
Well, of course you should. What you really should do at this point is limit it to 4, to Trump, Rubio, Cruz, and Carson. Eventually 2. But yeah, when you have 10 people on the stage, it dilutes it, and I think they need to collapse that.
So you think at this particular point, smart move, let's try to limit the amount of debate.
Yeah.
And that's going to obviously allow the candidates like Ted Cruz to have more opportunities to speak. So we'll wait and see what happens on the 14th. I wanted to ask you a little bit about Jeb Bush. It looks like under the current rules, he would be one of those 6. But he seems to be really taking on right now Donald Trump. Your thoughts on that strategy?
Well, he's doing anything he can to get back in this race. And it's very hard for him to do that. And the more he does that, the more he emphasizes that he's the establishment candidate, which is the badge, a kick-me sign you don't want to wear in this year's Republican primary.
It does not seem to be good strategy for other candidates to be attacking Donald Trump, but we do want to play the sound, and let's hear what Jeb Bush had to say this morning.
Look, I'm not suggesting he isn't a gifted politician. He is a great politician, but he's not a leader. And he has said continually to say things that's going to make it harder for the party's nominee, whoever that's going to be, to win.
Well, you know what? They're calling him a great politician right there. And earlier this weekend, he was calling him a jerk. Is Donald Trump a great politician?
He's an amazingly good one.
Yeah.
When you look at someone like Reagan, who was a good actor, but nobody knew if he'd be a good politician, and Trump, who's a good financier and a good showman, and you didn't know if he'd be a good politician. He obviously understands how to dominate the media and how to walk that line. He has not said anything that is out of order. He's not said anything that he's not allowed to say, but he's been very good about his barbs and his incisive comments, and look at how well he's doing.
I don't know if this was an incisive comment, but you mentioned earlier Hillary Clinton in a letter that she is sending out to her supporters, talking about if we lose New Hampshire and Iowa, and this is becoming more and more of a possibility based on some of the numbers. Hard to believe she would kind of start that with that lack of confidence.
Yeah, well, there's a new poll out right after the debate, the first post-debate poll in Iowa, that has Hillary going from an 18-point margin over Sanders to a 5-point margin, from 18 points to 50 to 45 in the most recent poll. And Sanders has been ahead in New Hampshire almost all the time. So today, about an hour and a half ago, she sent out a letter to her supporters saying, entitled, "If we lose Iowa or New Hampshire." And the text went on to say, if we lose those states, we all have to dig down and work harder to win the remaining primaries. For her to be, in effect, conceding 5 weeks before that she's going to lose those states, her polling must be disastrous in those states. And if Hillary does indeed lose Iowa and New Hampshire, she'll have a firewall in South Carolina because it's basically an all-black primary, or mainly black. But then in Nevada and some of the other states, she's going to have a tough time. I would think that Bernie would be tied with her in the national polling after he won those first 2 states. And it really indicates that this Democratic primary is going to be highly competitive. And for Hillary to be hedging her bets like that, A, is crazy, and B, indicates that all hell is breaking loose. It also indicates she got clobbered in that last debate.
Yeah, I think most people thought that this was Hillary
And
Clinton's...
I don't mean the bathroom break. I mean, when she should have stayed in the bathroom.
The missing 30 seconds. Most people, I think, assumed Hillary Clinton would be the nominee, but you're saying it is still up for grabs, and we always appreciate your insights. We got about 10, 15 seconds. Just a Christmas wish for our viewers out there at home. Dick, you're such a regular fixture on our TV. We appreciate it.
To keep your sanity. This is going to be a tough year, and I think that Republicans should rest content. We have a very good staple of candidates, and I believe any of them will defeat Hillary.
And the candidates you'll be talking to us throughout 2016. Right. We'll always appreciate your insights. By the way, if you want to comment on what Dick Moore's had to say and maybe tell us what your thoughts are about the upcoming election, just drop us an email or send us on social media, Facebook and Twitter.
Don't show my kids.
Don't you? We're going to be right back. Keep it right here on Newsmax Prime.